You know, it's important to remember that those who are caught up in the middle of this political fight are real people whose lives are impacted every day as this shutdown continues to drag on. And that includes people who depend on government assistance for food to try to feed their young children. So now I want to bring in Joel Berg. He's CEO of Hunger Free America, a nonprofit group that works to make sure that everyone has access to nutritious food. Joel, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for discussing this vital topic.
So let's get this out in the open. We've talked about, of course, government workers that may not be getting paid, or some who are working but no salary. But what are the impacts for people who are on the lower rung of the income and need this kind of government assistance? How are they cut off, or is it near to them being cut off? How critical?
Great question, Martin, and it's important to preface this by saying that government employees are not mutually exclusive from the population of low-income people. Right. The lowest paid federal employees make $25,000 a year, and they could miss a paycheck on January 11th. But in terms of the big nutrition assistance programs in America, the WIC program, which provides 7 million pregnant women and children with nutrition assistance in a vital time, the SNAP program, the newer name for the food stamps program, which provides 39 million Americans nutritional assistance, most of whom are working. Those could go away in a few weeks if this shutdown is not solved. So low-income people haven't been pushed off the cliff yet, but they are at the edge of the cliff, and it's very dangerous if this is not resolved very, very soon.
And what happens if we do reach this point? Because it does appear this could be drawn out for some time. And what will they do, or how will people be fed and cared for?
I think first you will see WIC clinics closing, not to get too deep into the wonkish weeds, but WIC is one of the few nutrition assistance programs that's not an entitlement, that is dependent on annual funding. In the 2013 shutdown, they were shut down for 13 days, and you saw in Utah, for instance, there was a lot of confusion. They closed down WIC clinics for a few days and then closed them back up right before this is settled. So you could see nutrition assistance to pregnant women and infants shut down sometime over the next few weeks. This is a program that's prevented 500,000 babies from dying at birth, because when you get better nutrition as a pregnant woman, you're far less likely to lose the baby at birth. So it's just astonishing to me that a side that claims to be pro-life is even dangling the possibility of taking away food from pregnant women and infants. And in the worst case scenario, if WIC goes away and then a month from now, food stamp SNAP goes away and 39 million Americans can't go to grocery stores, not only will there be a huge wave of serious extended hunger in America, you will see a near collapse of smaller and mid-size grocery stores and bodegas and corner stores in America. So I hate to be apocalyptic about this, but sometimes the sky really could be falling. And as you know from your coverage of Katrina past in your career, you know when there's a big disaster, it's low-income people who suffer the most. And in this shutdown, once again, it's low-income people who stand to suffer the most.
So if this government shutdown, I mean, how many weeks are we talking about? What is the deadline you see as when these programs really fall into a cataclysmic result?
I think between 3 to 4 weeks is probably the most likely time the money would actually run out. I also didn't mention, a lot of people don't understand their local food banks, and thus their local soup kitchens and food pantries that get help from their local food banks do get subsidized by the government. Not only do they get government food, but they get government support to transport the food from where the donations are to where they serve it. And that could be problematic in a few weeks as well. So it's really a matter of weeks, and we'll see how far this goes. But right now, nonprofits are suffering just because groups like mine don't have certainty. Other groups that have government contracts don't have certainty. Those nonprofits that are working for the government don't know whether they're going to get paid back. They don't know what they're going to do for employees on their payroll. And for small nonprofits around the country, uncertainty is a huge problem. There's a thing called the Community Development Block Grant Program, which funds things like Meals on Wheels. And as long as people don't know when that funding is going to be restored, it's really difficult for grassroots nonprofits to survive and to plan properly and to serve people properly, make sure shut-in senior citizens are getting these meals they need. Right. So everyone lauds the nonprofit sector, except when push comes to shove, they're really putting the nonprofit sector in grave danger.
Yeah, and the longer this goes on, the greater that danger will continue to be. Joel Berg, thank you for explaining something I think a lot of people weren't aware of. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Martin.
Still ahead.